All right, so that leads us to talk about the love bank. In 1986, there was a therapist named Willard Harley. He wrote a book called His Needs, Her Needs, Building an Affair-Proof Marriage. And in it, he came up with this theory or this idea of the love bank. So the love bank, if you think about your bank, your ATM, and they look something like this, an ATM, and this is an ATM that's a love bank. So you got on the screen the heart, and you think about it, in your regular bank, you make deposits and you make withdrawals. And the goal is to make sure you always have more money than you're taking out, right? And if you end up taking out more money than you have in the account, then what you eventually get is a notice that you're in overdraft mode. And what Harley said is the same thing is true with this metaphor works of the love bank for our hearts, that we all need to have deposits. We need to have affirmation. We need to have love. We need to feel, our hearts, lifted up and full. And so we need deposits. And that's true, parents for their children. It's true in adult children for their parents and all kinds of relationships in the workplace. It's the same. If you are an employer, you're a boss or a supervisor, and you are only taking from your employees and you're not pouring back into them, you're not blessing them or finding ways to encourage them or helping them feel satisfied and gratified in their work, they're not going to work there forever, because at some point you feel just discouraged. You feel in overdraft mode every day you go to the office. Now, all of us are going to feel that way sometimes at work and in other places in our relationships. But here's what we want to know. If I'm aware of that, if I'm thinking about your love bank, and in romantic relationships, really important, and I'm making deposits, more deposits than withdrawals, I'm going to find our relationship will last. And so I was thinking the other day about communication, and there was a married couple I met, and they said, I said, tell me how you met. And they were telling me, the first time we went on a date, we spent 8 hours. We went there and we closed the restaurant and bar down. We were there for 8 hours talking. And what I know is they give them 20 years and they won't talk 8 hours in a month. And so, we begin to not do the things that we did at first. And we find that ends up being detrimental. If that's a deposit, talking and sharing your feelings, then not doing that constitutes a withdrawal. Now, there are withdrawals that happen ordinarily in life. Your bank account, that's meant to not just put money in, but you take money out as well. And so daily living is withdrawals. I mean, we're going to, somebody's got to clean the house, and somebody's got to prepare the food, and somebody's got to take care of the children, and somebody's got to mow the yard. And all of these things are things we don't necessarily want to do, but we do. And that requires energy. It requires us giving something, for the other people, or for the family. But if we're not having deposits put in over a long period of time, that kind of ordinary stuff will lead us into a place where our account is overdrawn. But in addition to that, we find that we sometimes say things or do things or fail to say or do things that actually harm our significant other. And so, when we've gotten harsh, when we've gotten angry, when we've lashed out, all of those things, when we're intentionally not meeting the needs of the other person or doing something that's hurtful, we find that we go into overdraft mode really fast. And so when that happens, I know in my family what that looks like is I can tell in LaVon's eyes, I'm in overdraft status. I can hear it in her tone of voice. I can feel it in the silent treatment or whatever it is. And she can feel it from me when she's in overdraft status with me. It sort of looks like this picture you see on the screen of this couple. And this is overdraft mode. And I know every one of you who's been in any kind of significant relationship knows what overdraft mode feels like. And so the key thing is to try to figure out, how do we go about making deposits and not withdrawals in our loved one's love bank? And for that to happen, we need to figure out what constitutes a deposit in their love bank. Or I think about Gary Chapman used the metaphor of a love tank, like a fuel tank on your car. And you put the wrong kind of fuel in a car. So if you put diesel fuel in a car that requires regular, or vice versa, you're going to find the car is not going to start. It's not going to run. Sometimes you can even mess up the engine because you put the wrong kind of fuel in. So you need to know what constitutes a deposit. What's the kind of fuel that this person takes? Or, we talked about love languages. So this is one thing Gary Chapman wrote a book about years ago, and love languages. And what he notes is that we have different love languages. So I speak love in one way, but LaVon may be speaking love in another way. She might be trying to show love to me, but if it's not the language that I speak when it comes to love, I'm not feeling it as love. I'm feeling like she doesn't understand me, and vice versa. And so we're like two people talking two totally different languages. So this week, I want to encourage you, and in the GPS, you're going to find the information where to access this, but to take one of these surveys to find out what your love language is, or love languages are. So, I took one of those surveys this week, and I just wanted to show you this. This is my love languages. So Gary Chapman talks about there's quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts. You can take the survey for free. It doesn't cost anything to do it. But what I learned on mine is that, 30% of my love language is quality time, and 27% is physical touch, and 20% is words of affirmation. Receiving gifts is a little lower for me. Acts of service is down here. You might find that there's one clear leader, and you might find that your spouse has one clear leader. Or if you're dating, find out what they are for the two of you. Listen, this works for your mom. If your mom's alive, have her take the test. Find out what her love language is. You might just find that you've been showing the wrong love language to your mom all of these years, and she was really waiting for you to do something else. So what happens when we're armed with this information, or when we have kids, to know what their love languages are, and we can begin to make deposits instead of withdrawals?